but there does still seem to be a lot of support, a majority of support for helping Ukraine.
There's no question about that. And it's hardly surprising. If you look at how we talk about Russia in the United States and in the West more generally these days, uh, Vladimir Putin is portrayed as the devil incarnate. There's extreme Russophobia in the land. And the Biden administration and the establishment, the foreign policy establishments in the West more generally, have done a brilliant job of propagandizing this war. So it's unsurprising that large chunks of the body politic in all these Western countries are committed to seeing Russia defeated.
Do you think it's propaganda that's convinced the American people that they should support Ukraine, or is it the fact that they watched Vladimir Putin march his tanks over the border into Ukraine?
No, it's clearly the propaganda campaign. It's truly amazing the extent to which our discourse here in the West is limited so that we end up supporting the Ukrainians at every turn and opposing the Russians at every turn. There's hardly anything that's ever said that's positive about the Russian effort or that's a possible explanation in Russia's favor for why this war happened. This is a truly outstanding case of extreme propaganda. The only case that I think comes close is what happened in both Britain and in the United States during World War I. You want to remember that in World War I, there was no equivalent of Pearl Harbor or 9/11 that brought us into the war. And as a result, Woodrow Wilson had to go to great lengths to mobilize the American public to back the war. And this was especially true because the two biggest ethnic groups in the United States at that point in time were German Americans and Irish Americans. And Wilson was deeply fearful that the German Americans would not fight against Germany and the Irish Americans would not fight with Britain. So we launched an amazing propaganda campaign. And I think that since then, there has been no equivalent to that propaganda campaign until recently when Russia invaded Ukraine. And we have gone to great lengths to portray the Russians in the most negative light and to silence people who might have a somewhat different view. And that would include someone like me, of course.